What does a flaming, fiery phallus and the foundation of Rome have in common? Yeah, unlikely bedfellows, pun intended. And this relates to a variation of the foundation of Rome myth. Now, one of the fascinating things about myths and foundation myths as part of these is that very often we have variations. So you might have a myth that you're familiar with. Chances are there's sort of alternate variations of it. Now, in this instance, we have it from Plutarch in his Life of Romulus. And to be fair, Plutarch does give other variations of the foundation of Rome. And this one, he says it's a bit of a fable. He doesn't believe it, but, he's going to write about it, and which he does. And it relates to an incident which occurred before Rome, obviously, and it occurs at Alba, which was a city near to Rome, and a king called Tarchetius. Now, this king wasn't a particularly pleasant individual, apparently, though I don't know what that's got to do with the following events. Anyway, one day, so it happens that a fiery phallus rises from the hearth and kind of hangs around, as it were. And he doesn't really know what to do with it. So he goes and seeks counsel from an oracle. The oracle says, well, anyone who has union with said fiery phallus will have an illustrious son who is just incredible and, all that sort of a thing. Tarchetius thinks, oh, I've got a couple daughters. That might be a good idea. And so he orders that one of his daughters will spend time with the fiery phallus. But his daughter thinks that's not a particularly good idea. And to be fair, who can blame her? So she gets one of her handmaidens and says, you're going to spend time, should we say, with the fiery phallus, locked in the room with the phallus. And as a result, she becomes pregnant with twins. There we go. That's where you're starting to see in the link into the myth. Now, Tarchetius is none too pleased when he finds out about this. In fact, he wants to, I'm not sure what I can say on here, but shall we say he wants to end things with the handmaiden. But he is visited in a dream by Hestia, a Greek goddess who has ties and links to Vesta, who was god of the hearth. Hestia was a very, very important deity, thoroughly underrated. In fact, she was the oldest of Zeus and his brothers and sisters. She was born first, so she was really, really important. And predominantly, she's the goddess of the hearth. There's lots of other associations she has, but very, very important. Anyway, so she says, can't touch her, leave the woman alone, don't do anything silly. And obviously the king takes this advice, but he does think, well, I can't do anything to her, the handmaiden, as it were, but I could do something to the infants that were born. And of course, when the twins are born, he decides to have them removed. And the man who is charged with this couldn't bring himself to do it. And as with so many other variations of this myth, it's a sort of a bit of a trope, can't bring himself to do the deed, so he abandons them by a river. At that point, a she-wolf comes along, looks after them, and then a shepherd notices them and then adopts them. And there we have Romulus and Remus. Again, this is a variation of the myth, and Plutarch isn't believing it. But there is an interesting parallel to this, because it's almost like a recycled myth when we have the myth of, or one of the myths of the birth or parentage, call it what you will, of Servius Tullius, who's the 6th Roman king. Now, again, the Roman kings, I did a podcast mini-series all about them on the Ancient History Hound. You can go and listen to it. There's so much conjecture there. It's largely mythical. There's lots of stories about things. Servius Tullius is low-born, and one of the variations of his parentage is that his mother found herself in a similar situation, shall we say, to the handmaiden. There is a fiery phallus involved, that sort of a thing. And it's very interesting, aside from the whole fiery phallus, that we have the hearth as being linked to sort of births and parentage of, really important individuals. So anyway, there we go. But obviously, if you do have a fiery phallus that appears in your hearth, just leave it be. Don't do anything. Perhaps call the authorities. I don't know. But yeah, just be safe. That's I think the main important thing. So there we go. One myth that links a fiery phallus with Rome's foundation.